We are Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, and the artist formerly known as Blayne Gilmer. Blayne does not usually join us for basketball analysis, so this will either be the best thing or the worst thing we've ever done. I'm not sure which. I'm not sure there's an in between here. Um, yeah, guys, I watched a little bit of this game last night, not probably as much as you guys did. But my goodness, from a Kentucky perspective, what is going on, Blake?
I think it's very clear what's going on. Boy, where do you even start with this team right now? Look, I mean, we always knew these were going to be two tough games, right? I mean, there was no doubting the fact that these were going to be very big challenges for Kentucky. First, 2 weeks of the season, you play Michigan State and play Gonzaga, um, and I just it's what you've seen in the games that I think are glaring issues, even 5 games into the season. And for me, a lot of that has to do with how Kentucky plays offense. Their defense hasn't been great either, by the way. I don't think they have that next level defense, even if the statistics tell you one thing. I just think that there are too many lapses in big moments. And I mean, a lot of people are pointing out like the help defense last night in certain areas. Sheboy had that one play that really, I think, stood out for a lot of people. Those just kind of things that great teams that are going to win a national championship cannot do, and they're doing a lot of that. But the offense, let's call it what it is. I have told both of you guys that Kentucky's offense is just.
Would you like to read a text that you sent last night?
Well, hang on. Let me check this text first. Let me make sure this is YouTube approved here. Did I send it to you, Chris, or the group chat?
I think you sent it to the group chat, and you sent it like 5 minutes into the game.
Oh yeah, here you go. My thing was not sure the Cats have the mindset to win a game like this just yet. This was like from the opening tip. And then I said the Zags are probably going to win by 25. I said Kentucky runs intramural offense. I'm sorry, but I will say right now, and people have called me this before, a Calipari defender. I'm not right now because I think that like it's time to either figure out what they can do offensively and figure out how to run an offense in this era that goes beyond getting the ball to Oscar Tshiebwe and everyone else standing around in mud. Um, I don't know what they're doing half the time on offense, guys. I mean, you again, Blayne watched the game, Chris, you watched the game, you've seen them against Michigan. Like, State, like, what do they do offensively that's going to challenge other teams? And I know people will point out this too. Well, CJ Frederick, Antonio Reeves, they go. I mean, we talked about this, Chris, in the Michigan State
2 games in a row, they have not shot the ball well.
3 of 13 combined from 3 in this game.
And worse, 5 of 22 from the floor. That's 2 games in a row those kids have not shot the ball.
And that's a problem, right?
But is that on the looks they're getting? Again, you saw a lot more of it than
I think it's a little
night.
of both. I think it's a little of both. I think they've got to make shots, but at the same time, I don't know how much stuff Kentucky's running to get them wide open shots.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, I'm not putting all the blame on either side. I think that there's some to go around everywhere. You got to make shots at the end of the day. And we talked about playing them more together. This is just one part of the equation. I could go on for 30 minutes just on the offense because I think it's bad. It is an offense that is not going to allow them to get where they want to go. They're going to have to change a lot of things. And if they don't do that, if they try to run the same offense they've been running, and there's one big key that I'm going to say in a second, one big switch I think they can make to change things, but they're not going to be a great team. So,
well, let me just interject here and say that I've watched every Gonzaga game since the year 2000, either live or by replay. And this was a dominant performance by Gonzaga. And part of it was because you have to do one of two things to defeat Gonzaga. And many faithful here of Southeastern 14 are Arkansas fans, and they know what it's like to defeat Gonzaga. And they did so by overwhelming Gonzaga, by getting out up and down the court. They also rebounded really well in that game against Gonzaga in the Sweet 16. Kentucky did not rebound well in this game. They allowed Gonzaga to get out in transition offense a lot of times. And then two, the other thing you have to be able to do is you have to either shoot the lights out from three. As you said, Kentucky did not do that. And boy, Gonzaga, Rasir Bolton was just getting whatever look he wanted. 24 points. He was 50% from three. And I texted you guys during the game last night. I said Anton Watson is playing unbelievable defense. I mean, he really took Oscar and didn't let him do a whole lot. I mean, there were several times where Oscar let the ball drop, and Anton just kind of had quick hands, put his hands in there, knocked the ball away, and then there goes Gonzaga back down the court. So, it also may be that Kentucky was scared of Drew Timmy's facial hair. I don't know, but there was all kinds of stuff going on.
That was it.
The stash can get you mentally. I'm just telling you, and it definitely did last night. But seriously, Mark Few does talk about the coaching job that he did to get Gonzaga, after they got blown out by Texas, who overwhelmed them athletically. And I was, as a lifelong Gonzaga fan, I was coming into this one thinking Kentucky can do the same thing to Gonzaga athletically and be able to hurt them. But Gonzaga played physical in this game. So like I said, they out rebounded, they out hustled Kentucky and outshot them at the end of the day. So really, not much chance for Kentucky when you're getting beat on all three of those fronts.
Blake, I want to ask you something. And again, I got to watch maybe 10 minutes of it last night. We were doing our football stuff. I feel like I watched the worst parts. Well, no, that's not true. I tuned in when Kentucky was making that run. So I did see some of both. But I felt like Timmy was just making it look easy offensively at times. The other thing, and this happened late, Kentucky was 99% dead and buried, but Bolton hit a three kind of middle of the floor. And I believe Jimmy Dykes was the color commentator. And he just said, you cannot go under the screen there on a shooter like that, which they did. He got a wide open look. He canned it. I'm seeing some defensive issues with Kentucky when I watch them at times too.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, again, I've said it, like I think it's an awareness thing. Like it's just they don't, in whether it's again help defense or screens or like you're not seeing that chemistry on the defensive side that some of his best teams have had. And I think that's clearly part of the problem because what does that do? That allows the other team to get easy shots and easy baskets, and they've allowed quite a few of those this season. Because guess what, Chris? Guess what that means? Because if you're having to figure out what to do against screens, guess what? That means that team's running offense and they are trying to do things, to force you to make those kind of decisions. That's another part of the issue. I don't think Kentucky does that offensively, is force the other team to make those kind of decisions on what they're going to do if we do this or if we do that. How am I going to defend if this guy's coming off two screens and going to the corner for an open three? They don't do a lot of that. And no, I'm with you. You can look at the numbers and say, well, statistically, their defense, well, yeah, okay, maybe in the 3 games against Howard, Duquesne, and South Carolina State, but against Michigan State and Gonzaga, they've given up 86, which I know was double overtime, and 88 to the Zags. And so they're not there defensively yet either. And I don't know, man. There's a lot of things with this team that, look, we always say that Cal usually gets it figured out by February, and the numbers will tell you that he does. And we've gone through this before, but here's the numbers, all right? And John Clay put this out on Twitter. Do you know what Kentucky's record is against their last 10 games against ranked teams? 3-7. So, like, they just, this is, again, is it just getting out coached? Is it just not putting your guys in the right spot against the better teams? Because the talent, let's not even have this discussion. And I know a lot of people have started to have it. Like, well, we're just maybe not as talented as we thought. I'm not buying that, man. They got talent. Either. I'm just not buying it. Like, again, and I know people have specifically talked about this with Frederick and Reeves. Is they're like, well, they're just not division. They're not SEC players. If you put those guys in the right spots, which and play to their strengths, which is what? Shooting, they can be SEC players. Let's not kid ourselves here. And they haven't played well in these first 2 games, but I think there's blame to go around all across the board, but I just don't, I'll just go ahead and tell you right now. I think the one switch they have to make, because again, I don't want this to be all about offense, but I think that's a big part of the problem. Cason Wallace is the guy. Like, He
Yeah.
has to be.
He gets after it.
Severe Wheeler, Chris, you know what I've thought about Severe Wheeler. I've been a big fan of his, even going back to Georgia. But with this team, I'm telling you right now, it's time to turn the keys over to Cason Wallace and just let him do his thing and see how this offense looks. Because I just think that I think that's their best path forward.
My
Just
question is, Blake, do you think if you gave Mark Few, Jacob Toppin, and Wallace and Toshiba, do you think they would be more productive than with John Calipari?
That's the thing, man. It's just like offensively. I mean, look, Chris, this goes back to last year too, right? Like when we watched them play offensively, which that's every team's different. I know some people try to compare, this team, but like every team's different because you got different pieces. But I think a lot of what Kentucky does is Severe Wheeler brings the ball down, and either he tries to penetrate and do something, or we just throw the ball to the wing and we immediately go into Sheboy, and then it's back to the standing in mud, where everyone else is just standing on the perimeter, just watching and see what Sheboy can do. And if he doesn't make the shot, guess what happens? Sheboy tries to go for the offensive rebound on the putback. Everybody else tries to go for the offensive rebound on the putback. That's our offense. And that's like Blayne just said, like if you take all these guys and actually put them in the position to run a better offense, you're having a lot more success, I think. And it's just been, I know Kentucky fans that have been pessimistic about Cal have pointed out these things before. And like I said, I'll be honest with you, like I've tried to defend some of this stuff in the past because I think there have been points where you could say, well, but this, but that. These first two games against high quality competition, I don't think there's defending anything. I think it's clear as day that this is a big problem. And if they don't adjust to that, and what did I say, Chris, in the game preview? I said, I think maybe Kentucky can win because I think they'll make the adjustments. They didn't make adjustments.
Didn't
happen. It didn't happen. And so I don't know. And I'm not trying to be, you know how I am. I'm never the guy that's overly negative, but I think it's more disappointment and frustration with a team that you see that the pieces are there. Now, is the depth maybe what we thought it was, especially against top teams? Maybe not. But I just think that they've got to figure something out with how they approach these games, because they don't have that aggressiveness. They don't have that sort of instinct that we've seen from some of his best teams. And right now, that's a big problem.
Blake, you hit on three things that I'm with you on, and I want to get to those and expand a little bit. Before we do that, a quick word from our sponsor, Stakes. Predict sports better than the crowd for a chance to win NFTs. With Stakes, players can submit their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers forever. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join Stakes and have the best predictions captured in the moment. Go to playwithstakes.com/14. Use our invite code Southeastern14 for a double welcome bonus. Again, that's STAKES. Okay. One reason I was really high on Kentucky coming into this year is we said Kentucky had several things that Kentucky does not normally have. One, Kentucky never has a returning National Player of the Year, and Kentucky never has a returning point guard. Having guys that had played the amount of ball that Wheeler and Sheboy have played, returning, added to that star-studded recruiting cast and the supporting players. So Kentucky for once had experience. I thought that was going to matter, and especially at the point guard position. To me, that's coaching.
Which Gonzaga does not have, by the way, in that game. No point
that makes
guard
it
for
more
Gonzaga.
alarming. That's true. Second, you bring experienced guys who can shoot the ball, which is what you need. And Frederick and Reeves, they're not getting it done right now. Good players. Frederick's been in the program also for a year. He redshirted a year ago. So you can't say unfamiliarity in his case. It's just inexplicable to me how they're not playing better ball right now under that. And you mentioned the bench. We thought Kentucky was deep. Calipari's gone back to this thing where he plays 6-7 guys, it seems. They have 7 guys play double-digit minutes last night. One of those was Ware, who played exactly 10. I don't quite get that either.
I mean, I don't think it's surprising, in these kind of games to shorten your bench a bit. But again, I think Cal's thing is we got to play the guys who, we think give us the best chance, probably offensively and defensively. And I guess that's, he looked at that last night, and basically you're playing 6 guys. I assume that's kind of what it looked like. Because like you said, Ware only plays 10 minutes, but yeah, I mean, like I said, Livingston barely played. I mean, Wallace, plays 35 against Fair Wheeler, only played 17. So again, that's kind of one of those things that you look at too. Maybe what does that look like from a lineup standpoint? But I mean, think about the other things in this game. Gonzaga out rebounded Kentucky by 10.
Mhm.
I mean, that's another thing that I just don't think should happen. And again, that's not even knocking Gonzaga, right? That's just talking about just the pure athleticism and everything that Kentucky brings to the table with the kind of the length and all that. But they got out rebounded. And part of that's just missing shots and, just a lot of defensive rebounds for Gonzaga. But let me ask you guys this real quickly. And we're going to take this too long because, I'm not just writing off Kentucky just yet, but I think these are things you have to point out now. If you're watching that game, here's the question I would have for anyone. And I don't think I'd know anyone can be able to give the answer to me, aside from maybe Calipari. What was Kentucky's game plan to win the game? Was there anything that stood out in terms of they specifically did this, they specifically did that, and it was clear as day they are trying to attack a weakness, they are trying to do this or that? I didn't see anything. I just saw the same thing, aside from making a run in the second half, which was there anything really that different about what they were doing other than just making some shots? And I don't know. So
I mean, I think early on, any team that plays Gonzaga is going to try to take away Drew Timme by trying to double when he gets the ball down in the
yeah,
post. But again, you talk about adjustments. What did Gonzaga do? They took Timme out of the post, put him up at the top of the key, and then when you talk about that matchup of him getting to go downhill at Oscar, and him having to move in space, that's an advantage for Timme. And I don't think that's where the adjustment didn't come back the other way for Kentucky, is being able to, okay, so what are we going to do when they take him away from the low block area and things along that line. So yeah, I think the coaching adjustments were a big difference there. And like you said, Anton Watson, Julian Strother, they're good players, but they're not more athletic than most of the guys that Kentucky has, but they look like the more athletic players. Last night, both of them getting double-digit rebounds, and it was I think it was an effort thing at times with Kentucky, and then execution part of the time as well, Blake.
yeah. I mean,
Well,
here,
Blake, I
Chris, I'm
want
gonna
to
give you.
bring
Go
up.
ahead.
Go ahead. Well, one thing that you and I were talking about when we were watching this is, guess who got in foul trouble for Kentucky? And you saw Timme get the ball, just take it right at him several times down the stretch and get buckets that were easier than they should have. I think foul trouble was a huge part of last night's game. You had Sheboy, Wallace, Wheeler, and Ware all with 4. And I think where it really hurt was Sheboy.
Yeah, I mean, and I think there's look, like I said, Sheboy's unanimous player of the year or whatever. But like I still think I've said this to you, Chris. Like there are still some lapses he has on the defensive side specifically
Yes, had him last
that are
night.
still
Had
a
him the
problem.
game before.
Yeah, I mean, like that's still a problem, and I'm not, I'm not taking anything away from him, but like in these kind of games, those just can't happen, and yeah, I just don't think they can do that, and I mean, we'll wrap this up in a second because I don't, I'm gonna go scorched earth on Kentucky here because I think this is still a talented team, but they've got to make some significant adjustments, I think, to be what we thought they could be. Here's some of the quotes after the game, and I'll let Chris, Blayne, you guys can kind of respond what you think about some of these because I have certainly my opinions. From Kyle Tucker, the Athletic, put out some quotes after the game on what Cal said. Here's one of them. Basically, they imposed their will on us, talking about the Zags. And then Cal said that basically they blew the first play of the game after trying to work on it a ton. And he said, we have to demand execution. Well, yeah, I would hope so as the coach of the team and trying to get your guys in the spot you need to be in. He also said that their offense in the first half was so embarrassing we couldn't even run a play. Is that the problem, or is it
Did he call a play?
I don't know. He said, and here's the one that bothers me a little bit. Okay, I couldn't get Oscar to run the plays right, and then he said, "Why?
What?
Because he hasn't been playing with us." Now, Chris, I look. Let me say this real quickly. I was not there. I don't know what the context of this was, but if we're just looking at this quote as it stands, I couldn't get Oscar to run the plays right. Why? Question mark. He hasn't been playing with us. Well, Oscar Sheboy played for him last year, and I don't care.
Well, let me stop you there. Did he not transfer in at the break 2 years ago?
It's just like that to me doesn't fly.
This sounds like we got a
Do
problem.
I have that messed up? I mean, he's been there 2 years, if I'm right. He left West Virginia at the break. I don't remember if he made it to campus by the spring semester or not. But I mean, look, come on.
Here you go. I've got your response right here because here's the quote, and we can stop it here. Oscar Sheboy's response on what Kentucky should do offensively and why they can't score against top competition. Here's his quote. Most of the time, we don't really run what coach is asking us to do. Well, that's a problem. So,
wow. I mean,
what do you say, guys? I mean, again, I know this has been 20 minutes of everybody. There's going to be some Kentucky fans think we're just overly negative here, but these are the players and coaches.
This is a really super talented team. It's got all the parts. That's the thing. You can say we're negative or whatever. We watch a lot of basketball, pay attention to a lot of teams. You look at their recruiting. Again, you return a National Player of the Year. You return a point guard who's played a crap ton of basketball in the league. You got 2 established shooters. You got a guy named Jacob Toppin who can jump out of the gym. You got Ware. You got Collins. I mean, what was this team lacking come into the season, Blake? You tell me where there is a missing piece.
I don't think we can. I think this is something we do a lot in this. And look, we're in the hot take era, but I think sometimes it's easy just to put it on the coach, but I also think sometimes it's easy to just say, well, these players just aren't good enough. You cannot tell me that's the reason here.
No.
Because, and I know that's where we're headed with CJ Frederick and Antonio Reeves. The facts are the facts. They have not played well in these 2 big games. But I also think you can't tell me that if put in the right position, they can't be successful, because I think they can. And they're just not making shots right now. And you know what? Is that on the offense? Is that on them? Like I said, I think it's a little of both. But yeah, this team has got a lot to figure out. I think that's the best way to put it. So,
well, Blake, in Calipari's defense, when guys step up and make shots, you look like a much better coach. Sometimes it's just that easy. But again, I think your question is, are they doing things to get them the looks they can get?
Yeah. And by the way, let's not take anything away from the Zags. The Zags are good.
No.
I know we this is because we're an SEC channel, right? This is what we're supposed to look at it from this angle. But I mean, the Zags got blown out at Texas. And what was the stat I gave you, Chris, in the preview? They had not lost back-to-back games since 2018-19. So the chances of them losing this game were not good, because the trend is suggest that Mark Few coaches his team back up after they lose the game.
Especially in Spokane, where it was nuts last night in that arena. So
set an attendance record in that building.
Yeah. Just
for anything,
tremendous.
For concerts, for whatever.
There's no shame in losing to the Zags. Many have done it. Many will continue to do it. Okay.
That's a good way to cap it, Chris. So I've got nothing else. I mean, again, I don't want to take this. I've already gone longer than I thought we should, but I just think there's a lot to pick apart with this Kentucky team right now.
Look, Kentucky can get a lot better. You've got a lot of players who've won a lot of games. You've got as much talent as anybody in the country. You can say what you want of Calipari. He's done a lot of winning. Kentucky is the winningest program in the league over the last 5 years, over the last 10 years, all of which he's been there. He's won a national title. He's been to Final Fours. He's capable of figuring this out, but we call it the way we see it. And the way we see it after the Gonzaga game is there's a lot to be fixed. Any parting thoughts, guys?
No. Kentucky comes out and plays North Florida next. So, when they win by 30, I just want to see something different. That's all I'm asking. Like, just because their next big game is not going to come till, well, I mean, look, they got Bellarmine coming up.
Wait a minute. Bellarmine's a big game these days.
NATO country.
They beat Louisville. So, what if they're the state champs? We'll see. So
Bellarmine could be the state champs of Kentucky right now.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyways, Kentucky still got Michigan. I think they got UCLA on the schedule. So that's all before SEC play, which they will open up. You know, Kentucky opens SEC play against Chris on the road at the currently undefeated fighting Dennis Gates, the Missouri Tigers.
Oh, we've
So,
always got to get Dennis Gates in there, don't we?
there you go. All right. I have nothing else.
Okay. Thanks for watching. We do a ton of SEC football and basketball content. We do live streams Wednesday night at 8 Central, 9 Eastern if you're in Big Blue Nation. Thanks for watching our channel. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything. We'll see you again soon here at Southeastern 14, presented by Steaks.